Thank you for joining us today. So you can make comments via chat on Zoom or also on YouTube. And then Chris will monitor the questions and answers for us. The meeting is recorded. You're welcome to share afterwards, and we will start straight away. Thank you for joining. I'm IZAK, the founder and managing director for Xero IT Services in London. We are a Microsoft Gold partner and provide a comprehensive set of IT services for various industries, recruitment, legal, insurance. And thank you for joining us. So just to quickly go through the type of cloud deployments that you might have heard of or see, and just to give a brief overview of these type of deployments. Public cloud, all of us are very familiar with this. This is services like Office 365, Xero accounting, not Xero IT services, something you can actually buy off the shelf and use. That's available in a public capacity. A private is normally where you create your own cloud-like features, where there's more failover, where it's hosted. And a hybrid is the most popular, where it's a combination of potentially private and public, but what we naturally see is where clients or networks are set up in a hybrid scenario where it's almost cherry picking what is the best out there, what is the best for my organization, and at the same time safeguarding potentially anything that might be extremely critical and you would like to keep your hands on it. And I think the main objective for us as an organization is to guide you in the right direction, making sure that the selection will give you the same features, whether it's a hybrid or not a hybrid. Make a decision what type of cloud deployment will be best suited for your organization. And just a quick overview on the types of cloud that you get. And we are all familiar with it. It's got complicated. It's a bit of a going over the jargon, and just making sure that if you are confronted with these names, that you are comfortable working with it and you actually have a better understanding. Infrastructure as a service is normally a very raw form of a deployment of cloud. It might be that you are selecting and you're building almost, it's in a raw format. You are setting up a server yourself and you might be customizing this server for your own requirements. And this will be, in a typical scenario, a service provided from Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, where you set up, instead of buying a server and have it in your office, you would actually go and use their infrastructure, their back-end setup to actually set up a cloud service, like instead of using it in on your own server. Then platform as a service will be more customizable interface, where it was a little bit more of a combined solution, like if you're building online applications. So it's a combination of using the infrastructure, but there's a framework that's been built that you can customize and potentially develop an application. And software as a service is what we're possibly more familiar with, is Office 365, OneDrive, Salesforce, where it's a complete package bundled up on an infrastructure that's already there, that's in the cloud. So these are the key types that you do get other flavors and names, but this is almost the pyramid. The pyramid starts from the top to the bottom for infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, where software as a service can be in the form of something that you very likely use already, and just the application bundled up off the shelf that you buy. Now, to just reflect back on the actual, how does it fit into a hybrid cloud solution? You might have your own server and you are using, in example, Dropbox as a software as a service. So that will be a hybrid scenario where you have a server in your office and you're actually using a combination of these services on the outside and software as a service. So you have your own infrastructure, but the only cloud solution you would be using is software as a service. Then the questions that you can ask your provider when you are going into selecting what will be the best for your organization, there's a framework that we've developed that almost covers all the potential angles. Doesn't matter if you are using the infrastructure or a software as a service or the type of deployment. These will help you taking the right correct steps towards making the deployment safe, and also safeguard you from any unwanted surprises. So the framework obviously starts with, where is the data? Where will your data be stored? And for your industry, would this be compliant?
Sorry, IZAK, we can't see the presentation. We can see you, but we can't see the PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you. That's strange. I'll share it again. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so this is just the start of the questions. I will share the slides afterwards. It's also available on request. Thank you, Chris. So the first question is, where is my data? Especially in certain industries, compliance and regularity, where is your data stored? In the EU, we have GDPR, and there are certain limitations of where the data is stored. How is it stored? Is it encrypted? And also making sure that it aligns with your requirement in industry. But I think the key question we would normally test our providers with would be, where is my data stored? What is the location of the data? Is the data also stored in more than one location? Do you have multiple locations, making sure that you are not on a cloud platform that is on a single point of failure with regards to the data? Never mind the actual compliance side, but where is the data stored? Then, if you had to move from where we are at the moment, the solution we might be using an internal file system, but we are moving to a new cloud provider for file access. Currently, we can right click on the file and we can see different versions of the file. Would you still have transparency and visibility of the features that you currently have? Would you still be able to right click and copy and paste? If you had to move to a different spam provider, would you actually be able to review emails that's been blocked? We have seen scenarios where clients actually lost critical business because they moved to a provider that could not give them the feature to actually release emails from quarantine, as an example. So these are questions. What will change? What is my visibility on the process where I'm moving to? If I'm moving to an accounting package, would I be able to have different versions of my accounts daily? Could I restore and have visibility on the backups? The visibility factor is a very important point when you are making the decision, because it might be that it can be so business critical where you actually will not be able to perform the task you used to be able to perform. And that's why we recommend that you break it down into different categories of your selection. For if you decide, okay, we will be moving our antivirus solution to a cloud platform. Currently, with the non-cloud platform that is installed on the server, there might be where we have a function where we can scan offline. If we move to the cloud, that function is not available. Will this affect the business process? Would this be compliant? But the key question would always be my visibility. Would I lose some visibility? Would I, if I move to this antivirus solution, would I all of a sudden not being able to see what has infected my network or the workstations? So that is the one point about data and transparency. When you are making a selection, what will be changed? Will I still get alerts on if I had to move to the new solution? Would I have access to my solution in the event of a failure? This is also circling back to making sure, where's the data stored? Is it stored in more than one location? Could I have access? Could I walk to the data center and actually pick up the data? Can they copy it onto a medium for me? There's been scenarios recently in 2014 that was quite a big outage where users were storing all their data on Western Digital's cloud platform, but for over a week nobody could access the data. What type of access would I have in the event of a failure? And making sure that there is some sort of backup. And What will be the steps if the whole system had to go into, say, example, administration? Do they have any service level agreements around this? Can I actually walk in and see where the data is? Or is it stored? Or am I potentially one out of 20 million customers? And I think in that point, circling back to that point, is very important to make sure that always draw up the scenario. I lost all access to the data overnight. What will be the steps to recover from it? It might be that you are using a cloud file sharing platform, so it's not too much of a problem if they can no longer provide this service moving forward, but can I lay my hands on the actual data? Then if you are moving to any of these platforms, it will ease the process a lot. Will definitely be ensuring that you can do backups and using a third-party type of backup. Where could I have I understand as a provider they are providing backups, but could we have a third-party integration backup? Could we make sure that they are not only, if it's in Office 365, that we have a third party integrating, doing a backup. In the event of a failure, could we restore and have, again, access to this data? So it ties very much back into, if there's a failure, could I reverse back? And always, but always ensure there is a backup. And the other key thing around backups, and the backups is a big subject, is to make sure that if we do have these backups, who is monitoring the backups? Is somebody actually managing and monitoring these backups for us? But the key around the backups is always making sure that if you are using Dropbox, even if you are manually copying from Dropbox to example OneDrive or G Suite, that is a different platform. So you are making sure that if this platform is no longer available, I can revert back to a different solution and I have some sort of a backup. I'm not completely reliant on this client provider for the data and potentially for the backups. Then what we've also seen in the past is something you really have to look out for, and it's two parts of the actual internet. Is if we had to move over to this solution, what will be the latency? Today we are a architecture company and we are doing fast design output for various projects, and we can work on multiple files, and they might be large files. What will happen if we had to move our files into this new cloud storage, file storage as a solution? What is the latency? What internet do I have to have locally? Or are we going to be in a blame shifting culture where we have this supplier requires this internet, but I was not aware that I need to have a 1 gig internet connection? What will be the actual requirement? And what also for the cloud provider, what type of internet do they have? Do they have a tier 1 data center internet facility? Do they have failover? If I had to move over my whole business over to this solution, do I need a failover? What would it look like if I don't have a failover and everything has gone down? Could I still work from home? And weigh off the actual risk around internet. Then the last point we highly recommend that we've seen in the past also is that a provider might actually go and put you in this, lock you into this very easy, very comfortable position, and you are using the service and you're getting comfortable with the service, but now you would like to expand, or you would like to potentially move your data into this space, and the prices might actually quadruple, or it becomes a problem where you actually can't afford it, but you are halfway in it. And it's always a good idea to actually look at the per pricing model. What is the model? Is this scalable? What are the actual term I am signing up for? What are the actual longer term costs if I had to move all our files or all our emails, or whether it's archiving, over to this platform? What will be the cost implication if we had to increase the virtual service, if they are providing a infrastructure as a platform? What will be the cost if we had to start backing up the data? So the flexibility around what are the contracts, what is the length of the contract, what is the pricing model if we had to scale? And I think that those are the key areas. Does it work with, example, we recently internally had to move to a solution that can scan and scan receipts and actually work with our account software. So you can scan the receipts in. Does it work with other suppliers, or are they completely locked down? Do they have an open solution where you can actually access the files and have integration with other applications? Another very key point on the flexibility is also, could you bring in your security measurements into their solution? Could you integrate if you're using a two-factor authentication, would it actually be able to communicate, or would there be a cost increase? So these are very important points that we've seen in the past. It's very important to go through, and we've built this small framework, just like a very simple assessment to go through. As an example, make a reference of the provider. What are they providing to you? This is an example of potentially very quick point. This is our CRM package, our email package. Where's the data stored? What's the type of transparency we have? We have even better transparency at the moment. We will have auditing if we had to move to an example of SharePoint. Do we have any access? No, we don't. Backups, yes, it does work with third party. And then the internet, we don't need a lot of bandwidth. We can work from home. And what's the cost? It's per mailbox, per month. What's the flexibility around the contracts and agreements? I would just like to, I was not aware that we missed on the first slide, so I'll just like to go back very quickly to the first slides on
IZAK,
just going through the cloud deployment. Apology, Chris.
Someone, well, Karen's actually asked a question, how safe are cloud services? And she's added that some companies have disallowed cloud storage. So is that a valid concern?
I would say it's a valid concern. I mean, I think everything will go back to, if we circle back to the actual security, what type of security measures do you have in place? How do I access these files? And this is going back to the flexibility. Do I have flexibility on my bringing my security protocol that's trusted? Can I bring it into this storage of my files? And if I have two-factor authentication or a single sign-on solution with Active Directory, this is our security policy, and this everything evolves back to the single sign-on Active Directory. Everything is integrated. Can they comply with our security protocol, and can we push it out? Chris, any other questions? Just going back to the type of cloud deployments, it's the public, the private, and the hybrid, where the public is obviously what we face daily, and this is what you can buy off the shelf from various providers. And then the private is where you build something more yourself, it's hosted. And then the hybrid is a solution where you use a combination, the best of both worlds, and you've identified what will be the best for you. It's better to have some of the packages locally.
IZAK, there's also a question from Gavin. If we move from on-premise server to Office 365 and SharePoint, we understand that we now need backups for this. What is the likelihood that Microsoft failing? Also, what is backed up in the cloud, for example, on SharePoint? Is it the entire site, or is it content?
Oh, okay. I mean, so backing up, making sure that the content's actually backed up and that it's actually usable. I think the key thing is making sure that your selections are 100% up to date. Did I understand the question correct, Chris? Can you maybe just...
If it's actually on the chat. Okay, so he said, if we move from on-premise server to Office 365 SharePoint, we understand that we need backups. What is the likelihood of Microsoft not backing up? And what
I mean, the key there is we don't have visibility on the full backups of Microsoft. So I would highly recommend that you implement a solution that you can actually monitor and back up yourself, regardless of what the cloud provider is promising and doing. It's always a good practice to have a third-party backup solution. Very similar to having a Microsoft server with SharePoint potentially in your office or files in your office. The practice has always been, and for some reason we're no longer doing it, that practice has always been to have backup exec running, doing your backups. always having an additional or third-party piece of software it's always a good practice to have that in the cloud also. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, IZAK.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
There's a question from Karen. If the FBI or government or someone else requested the info, would they give it, or is the data protected by the provider? So will Microsoft protect our data, or Google?
I guess that will be a question that I'm not 100% sure, but that will be up to the local authorities, and that will also be local law depending on every country. I believe that what I've seen in the past and what I believe is very relevant, that providers will work with local authorities, whatever the requirement might be, and that will be available to police for any investigation, especially, it depends on the scenario.
Thank you, IZAK.
Thank you very much, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.